Hello students, today I am going to speak on plasma membrane structure and function. Plasma membrane is the biological membrane that separates the interior of all cells from the outside environment. Second point is that very important, cell membrane is selectively permeable to ions and organic molecules and controls the movement of substances in and out of the cells. It consists of phospholipids by layer with embedded proteins. Cell membranes are involved in variety of cellular processes such as cell adhesion, ion conductivity, and cell signaling. It serves as the attachment surface for several extracellular structures, including the cell wall, glycocalyx, and intercellular cytoskeleton. What are the phospholipids actually? There are two layers, two parts of the phospholipids, and they are uh, attached in the membrane. One end is the head is the hydrophilic, and another tail is the hydrophobic in nature. What is the structure actually? The most accepted model of the fluid mosaic model of the cell membrane. The dynamic arrangement of the proteins and phospholipids in plasma membrane is called a fluid mosaic model structure. Discovered by Jonathan Sanger and Garth Nicholson. Two types of membrane proteins are present, peripheral proteins and integral proteins. This is the fluid mosaic model. Just you can see here, the proteins are embedded and proteins are the outside in the fluid mosaic model given by S.J. Singer and G.L. Nicholson. Actually, peripheral proteins, it is connected to the membrane and easily removed by mild treatments. It lies at the inner and outer surface of the membrane. They are soluble in aqueous solution and make up to 20 to 30% of total proteins. They may function as enzymes that catalyze chemical reactions and act as a mediators of changes in membrane shape during movement. Integral proteins, which are embedded into the membrane, that can be removed from the membrane only after disrupting the lipid by layer. Not soluble in aqueous solution and forms above 70 to 80% of membrane proteins. It means it very high, very much in quantity. Most integral protein penetrate the membrane completely and are called transmembrane protein. There are some other proteins like which are attached to the carbohydrates, that is called the glycoproteins, and which are attached with the lipids, that is called the glycolipids. Many of the proteins and some of the uh, lipids on the outer surface of the plasma membrane have carbohydrate attached to them. Proteins attached to the carbohydrates are called glycoproteins, and lipids attached to the carbohydrates are called glycolipids. Both glycoproteins and glycolipids helps to protect the cell and lubricate the cells which are involved in cell to cell. What are the important functions of the molecules present in the cell membrane? Actually, plasma membrane in the very short, I want to tell you then very short. The first it it protects, and ATP synthesis by electron transport chain. It helps in the communication, cell to cell interaction, transport of the substances. Pigments and enzymes responsible for the photosynthesis are present in the cell membrane. and the material present are in the cell that are comes into the cell that is called endocytosis, that goes out through the cell that is called exocytosis. How how lipids works into the cell membrane. These are the phospholipids bilayer, already have shown to you, forms boundary to isolate cell contents from the environment. It restricts passage of the hydrophilic substances across the membrane. Just you can see that this is the head and this is the tail. The one is the hydrophilic in nature and tail is the hydrophobic in nature. They make it bilipid layer. How the cholesterol are present, lipid in the form of the cholesterol, it increases by layer strength and its flexibility, reduces membrane fluidity, reduces permeability to water soluble substances. And the proteins which are present in the membrane, either in intrinsic either are extrinsic, how they help in the transportation, that is called the transport proteins, regulate movement of water soluble substances. Channel proteins have pores that allow passage of ions and small water soluble molecules. And carrier proteins bind to molecules and change shape for delivery across membrane. There are some other proteins like receptor proteins, docking site for the molecules outside the cell, and it's also trigger internal cellular response. Second is the recognition protein, identification tags. Oligosaccharides aid cell to cell recognition. Cell structure attachment site. Next important substance is that is the carbohydrate which are present in the cell membrane, attached to the external surface of the integral proteins, hold adjoining cells together, act as a site where viruses or chemical messengers such as hormones can attach. Transport process, how it help in the transport processes. Movement of the how the transport processes take place. Movement of the substances across the cell membrane, that is called the transport. What is important thing that one transport is that is the passive transport. Substances move from high concentration to low concentration. Second point is that no energy input required. Such type of ATP or other forms of energy not required in the passive transport. Simply it transported by the diffusion, like facilitated diffusion. And another important transport is that active transport. Substances move from low to the high concentration and it requires energy input like ATP. And second is the protein carriers which are present in the membrane. They help to carry the molecules from one side to the other side of the membrane, that is called protein carriers. And another is that endocytosis and exocytosis processes. Next is that passive, how it happens. Just you can see that in the diagram, how it happens, simply how it happens from low to high, and this facilitated by the something, and facilitated diffusion takes place. And how the active transport takes place, that is called the endocytosis. Endocytosis is an active process for movement of large molecules and organisms. First point is that substance is taken in by vesicles formed from cell membranes, like phagocytosis, solid substances in vesicles, pinocytosis, liquid droplets in vesicles. Next, receptor mediated endocytosis, incoming substances bind to the receptors. Just you can see in the diagram very clear. And next is that how the exocytosis and endocytosis takes place. This is the cell, and this is the plasma membrane, and this is molecules coming inside the cell through the endocytosis process, and through the exocytosis the molecules which are present inside the cell that are going outside the cells. These processes are considered as a active transports. This is the function. These all are the functions of the molecules present in the cell membrane, and they performs its action and function in the cell.